Welcome to another episode of Business Beyond Borders with the Luxembourg Mind. Today we are at Technoport in Belval. There are a bunch of offices here. The one that we are talking to today is LMO, Lift Me Off, and we will be talking to their CEO and founder, Michel Poucet. Over the last 4 years, LMO has grown massively, increasing their contributions in both the civil and the defense side of things. It's a fascinating story, and LMO is a great example of the success we've had in our space industry. Let's go hear this great story from Michel Poucet himself. Okay, so today we have with us Michel Poucet from LMO, Lift Me Off. Since we did our last interview with Marc Serres of the Luxembourg Space Agency, there's been a lot of demands, a lot of asks to learn more about the space agency. So I'm really glad that you've taken the time out to educate us a bit more and tell us a little bit more about what LMO does. So thank you. Welcome on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Diving straight into it, Marc was mentioning about how space has become such a big priority for Luxembourg. Since LMO was created in 2020, you really seem to have lifted off, pun intended. You have 22 employees, you're working, you have active space missions, you have customers all over, and you've got strong contributions to both civil and defense firms with space surveillance, in-orbit servicing and more. Could you share a little bit about your journey, a little bit about some of the pivotal moments that led you to get to where you are with LMO?
So I'm a space engineer by background. I studied space in Italy. I've always worked in the space industry. And I started in technical roles, so I designed rocket engines in my first career, but I guess I wasn't so good at it, so they kind of promoted me more towards program management, business development, and other areas. As part of this, I did something quite bad. People would say I did an MBA, and I actually went to study business because I thought, well, I'm doing all these business things, but I'm just a rocket scientist. And as part of that, the goal was actually to leave the space industry. I thought, I've been so long in this, I don't want to work in space, maybe I can go do something different using my skills I built up. But actually in that trajectory, they kind of said, well, why don't you reuse these skills to build something of your own? So back in 2018, I actually set up, quite boring, a consultancy firm. Lift Me Off the goal was to lift off other companies to succeed and deliver great projects or grow within the space industry. I was going to bring together my knowledge of the space industry with my small knowledge of business. But consultancy contracts were boring. I thought, well, sorry consultants, but it's not for me. So I said, why don't I try developing something on my own? So we started off in the UK, working on quite simple things, propulsion systems, capabilities, moving things in space. For us, that was important. We were sending more satellites in space, so why can't we not move them around so that they're in the right place, they don't hit into other objects, or they can decommission. But very quickly, our CTO came on board and said, hey, instead of moving things, why don't see how things are moving themselves in space and provide the intelligence to be able to react to the scenarios. At that time, we were very lucky through my MBA. I met a Luxembourger person who knew the country, knew some people within the space industry, said, this new part of the business with seeing what's happening in space, why don't you go speak with some people? So we engaged with the university and some key people within Luxembourg, including Marc Serres. I met him at a drink at Bill for a space cafe, and we kind of discussed our plans. They were very preliminary. And from there, we got kind of the okay from a few, yeah, come here, this sounds interesting. And we were able to develop IP based on using computer vision algorithms, or AI, similar to self-driving cars, to actually just identify objects in space, understand what they're up to. And based on that, the goal was to use our UK propulsion technology to move them to a safe space or to get close to dock to them. And that's kind of the birth. Since then, we've got support from the space agency in developing things. As soon as we could see things and understand how to see things in space, obviously a defense perspective came around. Well, if you can see where your satellites are, can you provide intelligence on other countries' satellites or other risks we may face to our critical space infrastructure? So we started working with defense. Unfortunately, the war in Ukraine kind of accelerated that. It was first a little niche area they asked us. We did some projects to suddenly, we have a key interest. You might have found out that in the first stages of the war in Ukraine, some commercial satellites providing communications were actually, I wouldn't call it attacked because they weren't damaged, but were put out of commission for a period to give Russia the strategic hand. So that kind of accelerated our defense part. And really since then, it's been up and up and up. We're working on space programs, as you say. We're developing capabilities across Europe, that's EU and UK on defense perspective. And we've already worked with the US Space Force with a program there. So there's a huge interest, but there's still a lot to be done. As you said, we're just 22, but the next step should take us to really scale.
Fantastic. Can I go deeper into that? You mentioned space surveillance, in-orbit servicing. Is this real? Like, could you explain to us a little bit more about what these entail? Because they sound like what you hear in the movies.
Yeah, no, and it does sound, pie in the sky or far away, but actually, we're putting up more and more satellites into space. And actually, we only want to be in certain areas. If you think about it, we use space to look at Earth, to see what's happening on ground, to have, nice pictures of certain areas, be it civil or defense perspective. So satellites get put into similar orbits very close to Earth where they don't fall back to ground, but they stay in a position so they can see the most. So that's one area, and that gets congested. And they get put in an area where they move at the same speed of the Earth, so they can constantly beam down information. So these specific orbits get quite cluttered. So if we want to maximize the use, because satellites after a period of time do die and we cannot repair them yet, we can't do anything, then we need to make sure that we either keep an eye on them so they don't become a threat, or we find capabilities to fix them or take them out of service so that we can replace them. So really, space surveillance tracking is keeping an eye on everything. So we keep an eye on things on ground, but we look at keeping an eye from space. Where are there objects? That's friend or foe. Okay. And in-orbit servicing looks at, well, once that satellite has an issue or is ending its life, can I repair it? Can I replace some parts on it? Or do I need to take it out of service? And it's like your car. I mean, when your car, you have a flat tire, you don't throw your car away. You go to the garage and fix it. Now, the satellite can't come back. So what we do is the capabilities to allow you to approach that satellite. If you want to change out not the tire but a part, that can be done. This market is all new. It's what's called a new space economy. We haven't designed for this. So there's a lot of going on in the underlying technology. So we provide an underlying technology. We provide technology to get there autonomously in a harsh condition and be able to replace the tire. Then other companies like Deorbit, ClearSpace, Orbit Fab, you name it, will offer that service, hopefully underpinned by our capability.
Okay, wow, that's fascinating. So, you hear so much about how Luxembourg is investing in space, but to hear you talk about this and knowing that such fascinating work is happening right here in Luxembourg, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's we're lucky to be here. It's a great ecosystem.
So over the last 4 years, a lot has happened globally, and I'm certain that a lot of environmental changes, a lot of political changes have directly or indirectly affected LMO. Can I ask you to talk a little bit about some of the biggest challenges that you've faced along your path and what you did to overcome them?
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult. We didn't start a company with a great idea. And many people say they do. We started just a company because I wanted to help other companies first, and then we said, no, let's develop some capability to support the space ecosystem. And our co-founder came in, Marcos, and it was really like, okay, let's make sure space is sustainable. But starting a company from there as new, 2 people in the market, convincing people that what you're doing is, there's this future market to go service satellites. That's not easy. People kind of go, well, where's the money? How is it? Why do we need it? Even from a public perspective, but even from a private investment perspective, that's been very hard. So taking the time to develop technology, put together a credible brand by developing first products, then scaling towards new areas of in-orbit servicing, defense, has been a lot of effort. And you doubt yourself along the way. I'll be very honest, there's many days I kind of like, why am I doing this? What happens? Okay, if it doesn't, is a successful end of the year, then I'll go do something else. So that's really the biggest challenge, is yourself. You do doubt you could do it. And I don't know, I listen to some entrepreneurs, they go, I had this great idea, right away the vision thing. That's not how I am. I'm good at building something and getting it there, but you do get a lot of self-doubt. So resilience for us, our team, it's been the key thing to overcome that challenge. But that's the major one.
Okay, fantastic. I know for you, your work entails a lot of travel. You've got multiple offices, clients everywhere, all over the world. So can I ask you to walk us through what a typical day for you is like?
Yeah. So it sounds crazy because years ago I wouldn't have said this, but I actually get up quite early, probably about 5:30, 6 a.m. on my typical day for 2 reasons. Either I'm getting my car on the train to go to London, to go to our UK office, or I'm going down to our office in Luxembourg. I can get there bright and early. or I'm doing work from home. The reason being is I'm very productive early in the morning. So the mornings I try to fill in to do key work. That's preparing presentation for government, engaging with our shareholders, preparing the day to day of okay, this needs to get done, and ensure that gets done. I look at my emails in bed when I wake up. My wife hates it, but it's great. I can get really efficiently through all the stuff. In the afternoon, I kind of leave a bit free for meetings, more where I'm actually not doing things, but working with some people in my team or sitting with some stakeholders so that I can share some information. Then the evening, my energy comes back. And there again, I try to finish off so a bit the emails, what I've gone through. But my day-to-day isn't the same. It's not like I have a pre-planned, organized meeting with HR, do this. It really is, okay, we've got a certain goal to meet. That can be in one of the defense programs, the civil programs. The morning is doing the legwork, the preparations, ensuring everything's fine. The afternoon is more meetings with the team. And the evening is cleaning off, dusting the small things. It's also the time when no one disturbs. But with 22 people, and we were half last year, you do anything from finance to HR to sitting with auditors to sitting with, I currently mentor a technical. I have a young engineer who's just started. Every Friday I mentor him for an hour because it was my role when I was a rocket scientist. So it's very varied. I am now learning slowly that I cannot do everything. And there's a new phase of the company where I'm actually, we put up middle management, and I am distancing myself and only focusing on some core elements, which is strange for me because before I do a lot of things in one day, the 20-80 rule, 20% of your time, do 80% of the result. I'm now being forced to do the other way, polish it off, make sure the communication to government shareholders internally is correct so that the rest can do the work properly.
Okay.
And that needs to be precise. But that's a transition we all go through.
Fantastic, very good. I'm glad to have this visual view of how your career has progressed at LMO to where now you're more of a visionary as opposed to actually getting there.
Trying.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I'd like to move the conversation a little bit to Luxembourg. I know that you could have set up LMO anywhere in the world. It's a great. I know you say you didn't start off with a great idea, but it is really having a big difference to your clients. Luxembourg gives you certain opportunities to grow, especially in the space sector, because it's a priority area for us. But personally, how is it like working in Luxembourg?
No, I love working in Luxembourg. I love the people. I love the ecosystem. I love that, and the government has to apologize to me, but I sometimes feel like we're both startups, both ourselves and the Civil and Defense Agency. They've been growing while we've been growing. They've been learning while we've been learning, which kind of puts you on the same level. It's easy to talk to. I don't know. In the UK, I do see the space agency like, the head of the space agency is there. Okay, I can approach him and think, but he still represents a big thing. You may imagine like NASA. You don't just turn up to the head of NASA, or whatever. It's a different beast. Here in Luxembourg, I like Mark. I can work with him. I like his counterpart at Defense. Sasha at Lux Innovation. It is great to be able to work with these people to bring success to Luxembourg, but it's also nice to have short lines. It's nice to be able to influence, understand what their needs, what we can offer, and to be transparent about it. Say, look, we would like to do this. This is what we can do. What is very nice to Luxembourg is everybody is quite humble, I have to say. I think it's innate here to the country. It's not all about pizzazz and everything. It's more about, okay, this is what I can do, being honest, transparent. Maybe it takes longer to do things, but when things are started properly from the beginning, you can get really far. And I like that relationship with the agencies, with the other industries. It's all about, we're in this together. Let's build solutions together to solve our needs. And out of that, there'll be a successful space agency, a successful space ecosystem, and hopefully a successful LMO. But time shall tell us.
Okay. Can I dive deeper into that? Like, what are some of the unique advantages or strengths that a space firm has in Luxembourg?
Yeah, so because it's a cornerstone for the government to scale its defense operations and space operations, everything is set up to help us get there. So from a civil perspective, the space agency really works like an investor. They look at your business plan, and if they like it, they invest with a commitment to say, over time, we're going to help you out. We're going to give you civil programs. You've got to bring in financial bankers, but they give you a long perspective of how the agency can help you. That allows you to raise private capital. facilities. We are here in Technoport. The government puts us to us the availability to use the facilities. We pay rent, but it's not as much as paying in commercial rent. And all the systems are set up. Now we got to move out soon, but at least it's in the beginning a way you can come in, set up your team, you can quickly scale the office, and you don't need to worry about expensive costs.
Sure.
Defense, they work with us and they put us on a stage. You can imagine I can get in discussions with certain people in Luxembourg in the ecosystem, because we're a small country, their counterpart in France or UK is quite senior. So if they bring us into that conversation, which they do, because they're very proud of us, that puts us in a completely different level in another nation. That allows us to work bilaterally, and we now work on French defense programs, or programs supported by French defense, programs supported by Italian defense, because there's a credibility. They bring these companies in, they show, look, made in Luxembourg, please could you look at they do, and then obviously we need to bring it in. It's not like randomly we'll go work with France, but they show this capability, and if it's of interest, that country will listen.
Okay.
So it's access, it's capability, and it's also trust a lot. A lot of it is trust from both sides.
Fantastic. Are there also some areas where we can do better to foster greater growth in the space industry?
You can always do better. I don't want to mind. I don't want to complain, because I think what is being done is great. But as I said, we're both startups, so we are still learning. As Luxembourg, we turn that coin upside down. We compete with very large countries around us. That is France, Germany, UK. And sometimes it is very difficult for Luxembourg companies, and I would say also the agency, to find their position with respect to these countries, to make sure that Luxembourg companies can maximize their return within the European or NATO area.
Sure.
So there are often times where it takes some time before we know the best way to work with NATO. We know the best way to work with a big German entity or whatever, because they have their machine and we're not used to it on both sides. So I think that's where we could learn. But I think that's what's happening. Through us companies, we are learning, but the agencies are learning.
Fantastic.
And actually they are putting us in a position not only for them to share feedback, but for us to share feedback to new companies. There's a lot of things we've done for the first time here in Luxembourg, which defense or civil knows, which we can then directly tell the other, like, oh, we did this, oh, you got to do it like this, otherwise you get stuck. So that's it. But I don't want to complain about. That learning curve is normal. For the rest, there's no big holes. Yes, we have issues with finding people in Luxembourg. The cost of living is expensive, but that is just a general Luxembourg thing. That's not a space thing, and I think everyone feels it.
Sure. Coming back to LMO, what's next for LMO? Any sneak peeks, anything exciting in the horizon?
Yes. So, as I mentioned to you, we've been 4 years here. We started out with research, partnership with the university. We've done a lot of developments, but the key area we're now starting to enter is actually our capability being linked to missions. So, in the next few years, you're going to see us collaborating and going to space, and space heritage is everything within the space industry. You could do a lot of research, good development, but as soon as you brought something to space, you entered the big leagues, as you may call it. So within civil and defense, we have now partnered with companies where we expect in the next few years there'll be missions with Luxembourg capability, IP, enabling other nations, other services to reach their objectives. And for us, that's huge. That brings credibility back to us, that brings more business, that brings credibility back to Luxembourg. And everybody working on it, but I'll be honest, that hopefully will allow us to raise significant investment to then scale the business further. Because as I said, you might hear, we've been quite bootstrapped, do a lot ourselves, the CTO and I, and even our team are great in getting the most out of what we have. But we've come to a point where we need to really be a strong business, and having that credibility and raising investment will allow us to become a consolidated player within Luxembourg and beyond, the UK where we're based and other areas.
Okay. Fantastic. Exciting path ahead then.
Indeed. Challenging and exciting.
Okay. Now, Luxembourg has been investing a lot in the space industry. We have a lot of space firms in Luxembourg. I think there are like 6 in this building. Can I ask you to share a little bit about where you think the future excitement lies? For example, are there any specific firms that you're excited about? Are there any specific projects that you're excited about?
Well, I think that there's different verticals. What I'm very excited about is the space agency and this is me, I don't want to speak on behalf of the space agency, but look, you have like a communications vertical that's building on the back of SES. You have OQ Technology, providing novel telecommunications from space. I think they just recently raised significantly. They're based worldwide. I think that's a really interesting company to do it. I think SES, one of the SES funds has backed them. That's maybe the standard bread and butter for Luxembourg, but to have new ways of doing it in alternative ways, I mean, that's already mind-blowing from us from space. Then you have the very far part, space resources, looking at, planetary exploration. How could we reuse resources? How can that affect? And how does that affect that space, but also on Earth? I look at Man Electric. Man Electric obviously looks, again, I don't want to speak on the business model. My understanding is converting, sand or regolith into solar panels, which is energy, which allows you to build infrastructure. Great for the moon. Yes, we're not there yet, but I think they're working out of the desert. Is it in Dubai or wherever it is, to do that on Earth, and that we can reuse because it's in a remote location. We can create energy. So that's dual use, almost. Well, not dual use defense, but dual application. But just looking at what can we do around the moon? How will that go? That will take more than 10 years. But how does that technology come back? That's the old way we did space. NASA did something, and we ended up with a microwave in our house. And then we have the in-between part, the part which is still a bit dreaming, in-orbit servicing, but tangible. You can see it happening. The in-orbit servicing, space situational awareness. These are key areas where defense and civil have invested. You've got North Star here in Luxembourg, a Canadian firm, but they got their operations. You've got Clear Space, in-orbit servicing. Yeah. These are firms which you can go offer services. I'm very proud of those because those are companies we hope to work with in the future. Obviously, I can't share with the business relation we have, but we do hope to enable their capabilities. So you see we have kind of the near term. Is it near term? It's not near term, but the what we had, telecommunications. You've got the ESRIG, the space resources, and then you got part in the middle. And that allows Luxembourg to have a long-term roadmap, but already capitalize in the short term because, there's going to have to be a return. People like you and other people who are not space dependent want to see, well, why are we investing in these 70 firms? I think it's 70. What are we getting out of them? Yes, we had SES. What's the next SES? And there's many possibilities which we should all look out for.
Okay. It sounds like there's a lot to be proud of as someone living in Luxembourg.
Yes, indeed. And we should share that more and more. We're not so good at it as space people.
Well, this is our attempt at doing that.
Indeed, yes.
Well, this brings us to our rapid fire round. This is the fun segment. I'm going to ask you a few hypotheticals and we'll just see where it goes.
Yeah.
So first question. Would you rather be in a spacesuit, a spacewalk in a spacesuit, or pilot a spaceship from mission control?
I prefer to pilot. People go to space. I don't need to go to space. Pilot, do bring other, more adventurous people. I'll be the space pilot.
Okay. Another hypothetical. First contact with the extraterrestrial civilization or discovering a new habitable exoplanet?
No, I think first contact. Even though I don't want to go to space, having the first contact with, another type of being, that'd be amazing.
Maybe we invite them here to Luxembourg.
Indeed, yes. They're out there, statistically speaking. We just need to find them.
All right, this is a very personal question. If you were abducted by aliens and had to perform a talent to prove humanity's worthiness, what would you choose? Singing, dancing, telling jokes?
I'd probably go for the joke. I can't sing, I'm terrible. I can't dance. Probably terrible at saying jokes, but at least that's, I can find one to say.
All right. Moon or Mars as the next big space destination?
Look, Mars is great. It's a wish we should focus on that, but Moon is a stepping stone, which gets us to Mars, and that's what everyone's saying. If we can, build operations, economy around Moon, then we can demonstrate how there's a business model around Mars.
All right, tough question now. Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Wars. That's not tough. Star Wars. I grew up. I still remember, and it was in Italian because I was living in Italy. The Italian video cassettes I got was the early '90s. Well, I was 4 years old. I still remember we got these cassettes and watching it doing Star Wars all the way.
Okay, fair enough. Straight answer. Well, I'm going to ask you for some advice before we close. For our listeners that are not in the space sector, but seek to know more about the amazing progress that we're making here in Luxembourg, to be proud of what we're doing. What are the best ways to learn more?
That's a very good question because we as within the space industry, we think everything is clear, but it's hard. So it depends where you're coming from. If you're really coming from a non-space background thing, the agency organizes open days. There's days where you can go visit. I believe there's also Astronaut for a Day program. This is where people from schools can understand a bit more about space. I think through internship of things, people from school can also come work at companies like ours. That's for people who don't know there. For the rest, within the industry, I would kind of go, well, just try something and meet people. There are drinks, for example. Every is it third Thursday or there's once a month there's space beers. People go have drinks. It's very low. It's people from research, academia, industry, government.
Who organizes this?
I have to think. I think it used to be Alexander Finch from Bradford. There's a LinkedIn group.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, Alexander, Alex, for naming you. But it might have been taken over by someone else. I don't know. But I'm in there. I haven't gone for a while, but a lot of our engineers go. Okay. So that's that. If you're more looking at a company, just come speak to people like us at events and ask questions. For the rest, I think I should turn this question around and say, what can we do more? I have a feeling that within the space industry, I know, everybody knows. What can we do more to actually reach out to people out there? Because we do everything, like I said, job fairs, we do our own little space thing, we have space things. Once people know, they come. But how do we make people know that there are events out there? What can we do?
I think some of the things that you're doing are already great. Like you're doing this podcast. You did another one with Luxembourg Unplugged. You spoke to the Inside Alumni Association of Luxembourg. I think more of that, just getting people more aware of the brilliance of the industry, the great progress that we have made, putting yourself out there, talking to people. I think that really helps.
Okay, well, we'll keep doing it, and hopefully we'll push the government and other industries to do as well.
Yeah. Another quick question. What advice would you give to individuals who are aspiring to build a career in the space industry right here in Luxembourg?
Well, there's no better time. There is a lack of capability, and it can be anything. We need people all the time. That's not just LMO. That is the public, private institutions need people to come work for us from different backgrounds. So, step one is getting to know that that's available. So, engage with universities, engage with industry, go to these events, because right away they will tell us. You'll get to know the people who are the ones going to be hiring. Yeah. If you don't have a background which is really, you think they won't hire me, there is the Interdisciplinary Space Master, I believe it's called. I think it's a 2-year program where they'll look at different backgrounds. It doesn't need to be engineering, but different backgrounds. You do a 2-year master course, and a lot of those people enter the industry. We've hired people from the Space Master and done. So if you were looking for a career, that's a good way in if you feel you're very far away. But we've hired people in software or other elements which have no space background. Okay. Some came from IE, the automotive industry, everything. So number one, don't think it's a closed shop. There's a lot of opportunity. If you do think the gap is big, go speak to the university, look at their courses, maybe do internships. We're always looking at interns as well. If you want to start a company, that's a bit more complex. Lux Innovation and LSA is your first point. Come with some ideas and come with a bit of skin in the game. Luxembourg, I feel, is more open. If you say, look, this is what I'll do, and by the way, I'll start. I don't need money from you. I just want help. Speak to people like me, I guess, as well. That's not because I'm great, but we've gone through it, so we can point you. And again, it doesn't have to be me. It can be the different CEOs out there. Jordan from Odysseus, which we met before, or ever. They're there to help, and we're nice people. We're not on our pedestal, whatever. Nobody is in Luxembourg. At least no one I've met yet.
Fantastic. Well, Michel, thank you very much for doing this for us. Thank you for spreading awareness about the brilliance of our space industry. And just thank you for being so kind and open to do this.
This is me, I don't know. I can't hide anything.
Well, cheers. Thank you very much.
All right, great. Thank you.